Hello, welcome to Civilization Jihad Awareness. I don't know what's happening with the show intro, but for all of a sudden, on my end, I'm hearing it start over and over and over again, and we're not going to have that. Wow, I'm surprised. That's a first for the show, and that kind of says something that I want to do, which is get a new intro for the show, and I'm going to be working on that next couple weeks. For those of you joining for the first time, Civilization Jihad Awareness is the name of the show, and we're calling it CJA News and Views for now. I am going to talk to you about what Civilization Jihad where that term comes from. It's not something I created. It is something created by the Muslim Brotherhood of North America. There is a document that was discovered and used in the 2007 and 2008 trial against the Holy Land Foundation. And this document is called the Explanatory Memorandum. In this one document, there is a paragraph that really tells you where civilization jihad comes from. It simply says this: the process, the process of settlement is a civilization jihad process with all the word means. The Ikhwan must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and wherever he lands until the final hour comes. And there is no escape from that destiny except for those who choose to slack. But would the slackers and the mujahideen be equal? Again, this is not a term that I created. It is a term created by the Muslim Brotherhood. And I want you to think about that. This term is created to describe the slow war against North America. What is a slow war? It's a subversive, seditious war until they feel like they're strong enough to begin jihad here. And so far, thank God, they do not feel that way. And we have examples of this throughout history. And one of those stages that has to do with this has to do with control over the media. Well, social media is part of the media today. And I have asked Lori Hopkins Cavanaugh to come join us today and talk about what's happening with her. So without Lori, can you tell people?
I can hear. Can you hear me?
Oh, great. Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Thank you. Welcome to the show, Lori.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Lori has her own show. You might want to tell people about that first before we get into things.
Well, my show broadcasts on 94.9 News Now. It's a CBS affiliate out of Connecticut. It actually broadcasts to 3 states, so I can be heard in Rhode Island, Long Island, New York, and Connecticut, parts of Connecticut live. But it is also streams live at the 94.9 website, and that is on Sunday from 1 to 3. And this Sunday, you're going to be on the show, which is awesome.
So with social media, what's been happening with you lately?
Well, I posted specifically with great intent to establish the threat to our uniquely American liberties that Islamism and Islamists pose in our country today, and I basically use those terms, not calling out any individual person, not calling out Muslims, not calling out anything that was hateful or saying anything hateful, just making specific factual statements, and I was blocked. But my post did not violate Facebook's community standards. So they have a problem on their hands because I truly believe, that if I had replaced every word where I used Islamism with communism in the post, they would not have censored me. And I believe that that's the truth because I believe that CARE has benefited from Facebook money and charitable donations, and that CARE has convinced Facebook, and Facebook has willingly accommodated CARE and become Sharia compliant.
You've picked one of the words. I'm just double checking. There's a list of words that has been recommended by CARE to not be used. And let's see, who is it? Esam Omesh. And that's going to be in the news later on today. But he gave a list of terms not to be used. Among them, I believe, was Islamist. I have to double check that one, but it's just an amazing, amazing thing. They don't want anybody to know that Islam is political. Like, they don't teach it in the mosque every day.
Right, and the thing is that we this post specifically went after the political aspect of an ism, not a person, but an ism, and it could be communism, fascism, Marxism, and I always write about communism, Marxism, and fascism. It's only if we say Islamism that we are banned now from political free speech. That's against my natural rights as an American, my unalienable rights, that they strip political free speech from me. It's our constitutional right. It's my God-given right. And this is where we have a true problem with Islamism and Islamists in this country. And Representative Omar, if you have recently seen, there's a video out there. I couldn't find it. I wanted to send it to you, but there's a video out there with basically political Islamists, including Mongi Dawardi, who is from my hometown of New London, Connecticut. He's a past president for CARE in Connecticut. And he is basically blocking doors, and he's her bodyguard now. And that guy hates Jews, hates Israel, and is a Palestinian sympathizer, and he is heavily connected with the Muslim Brotherhood and in the highest echelons of CARE.
Andrew Herod sent that to me. He was there at the time that was going on, that they had the Pinkos in there in the room, if I remember correctly. And that still shocks me. They had a demonstration pro-Omar that was in Pelosi's room, I believe. Wasn't it? Or is that a different one?
I looked at it. I tried to find it again. I could not find it. I'm banned from Facebook for another few days. I'm not exactly sure what to do. I feel that, I can support all of my statements with documented sources, and that's where you're going to come in on Sunday, is basically we can talk about what I posted, and you can supply, and many people can supply the evidence that what I say is truth and it's not hateful. And many Muslims now that I see on national news that are reformists, and they are democratic American, many of them American citizens, they don't like Islamism and Islamists, and they are really fighting against many of the, what CARE stands for, and ISIS and everything, female genital mutilation. I mean, they're on the front lines of freedom in our country, and yet their voices are never heard because they're squashed by Islamists.
This is the crazy truth, is that the governments of many places, well, not governments, but the social media platforms are listening to CARE in America. Hamas in America, which is CARE. We have federal court documents that testify that basically the arm of Hamas here in the United States. And, this is testified through by Investigative Project on Terrorism, Steve Emerson's group. You have this Center for Security Policy also saying this. And you have John Guandolo's group, Understanding the Threat. There's tons of groups out there that are exposing this fact, and yet we have idiocy, the liberal platforms that want to be willingly accept whatever they are told, as long as it doesn't agree with the truth. And that's the scary, scary fact of where we're at. Oh my gosh. What was did you get a way to appeal your this ban, by the way?
I did appeal it twice, and they turned. Well, the first time they just turned me down flatly. The second time they said they approved the appeal, but they didn't. I was still banned. So I have all these screenshots. I've just been taking screenshots all day. People are getting upset with me now because I'm not able to respond to their messaging. I have 5,000 Facebook friends that are really hand-selected personal friends that I invite to go to the Village Green and discuss things and really talk about, to the mall. All these laws that we have in the country that protect free speech on private property or wherever, where people congregate. Facebook is one of those places, and they have invited me to set up my own space in their mall, in their Village Green, whatever, and they're saying to me that we're going to data mine everything about you 24/7, and then we're going to tell you what you can and cannot say. Well, you can't form a relationship that's based on data mining my most intimate thoughts and then tell me not to have my most intimate thoughts and not speak and that I have to give up. I never signed away my natural inalienable rights when I signed up for Facebook, and that's what they're doing. They're stripping me from my constitutional rights, which is a lot different, than some of the claims that, well, this is a private company. Well, no, it's not really. It may be a private company, but it's doing business as a mall or a village square.
And that is very factual. I mean, when you think about how universal Facebook is today, it's hard to find people who do not have some access to this platform. In fact, if you go back just a couple, you go back, talk to a child today, they'll tell you they're on Facebook. You'll talk to your neighbor, they're on Facebook. It's very rare these days there are people that are just not plugged in. Those are the only people really who are off Facebook. I have one of the guests, one of the people in our chat room is Vorpal. He says, Vorpal Bite, he says he's banned from Facebook. And I'm guessing it's probably for the same reason. What's bothering me, I got locked out of Facebook for, I think it was 10 days for the fact that I liked Republican groups.
That's amazing. It is targeting conservatives. That's a perfect example. Did they say that they gave you that? They gave you that explanation.
They said it was unusual behavior. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what they do. That's right. If you like too many people, if you share too many things, then they don't really want you to have 5,000 friends, even though they allow you to on a personal site. They took down all my pages, my Lori on Liberty page, my Lori Hopkins Kavanaugh page, and I depended on those pages too. I have very strong personal relationships with my friends, and I feel violated, and I feel violated because this is Sharia compliant, and I'm not Muslim. I'm American. I'm not, subject to Islamist whims and Islamist law, Sharia. So I want I want Facebook to really explain how they can do this to people, and the government should be cracking down on this. I heard Trump did do some things today, but not on social media free speech.
I would love to see him take Facebook on. He's the kind of guy who could do that. He's charismatic. He wouldn't have a problem standing up to Mark Zuckerberg. And I wouldn't doubt that he's done it at some point.
What's next, Paul? What is next? What are they going to do to us? Sharia. Now they took. To have my post taken down on Facebook, I'm really nobody. I have a show. Yeah, maybe they think it's a big deal, or somebody does, and I got flagged or something. But really, when you look at this is affecting probably thousands and thousands of people across the United States today. Sorry about that.
One of the things I get concerned about is that the people who are doing the monitoring for Facebook, who's actually looking at the peels, who's actually tagging things. Do you think they're actually going to pay Americans to do this? No, they're probably paying somebody who lives in a Sharia zone, such as the Philippines and maybe in Saudi Arabia. I mean, this is something to think about. Who's actually flagging things? Now, if
It could
you're
just
in
be a
America,
computer, though. It doesn't have to be a person. They saw the word Islamist, like you said before. That's one of those
yes,
words that is banned, so they just pick it up.
I think that's I use the word quite a lot, so I think it's individuals right now. My way of dealing
Hmm.
with being
Wow.
flagged lately has been to only allow people to join my group if they're to join my page if they have 50 or more followers. That was actually recommended to me last year, and to me, it's
For
been a
Facebook?
huge difference. Yes, for Facebook, and in LinkedIn, I like LinkedIn as a good forum. Twitter, I'm shadow banned. Only the people who
Yeah, you told me
know
that,
me.
and I just started on Twitter, um, so it should be interesting to see how long I last without having the same thing happen. It was amazing because as soon as I'm wondering if they talk to each other as well, as if they share some of this information. If also Twitter is Sharia compliant, is this all going through CARE? I mean, are they? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's not a surprise to me because CARE is the one that seems to think they are the voice piece for. They claim they are the voice piece for Muslims in America. They're talking about all
Hmm.
Muslims. When they say the term they call themselves a civil rights group and say that's what they exist for. However, that's problematic because they don't represent Shiites basically, and they basically shut them out. They're not going to come out and tell you that, but they do. And then Facebook also uses SPLC, correct? Gulf Dogs, sorry, Bring It Boy, he said they use SPLC, and that also is correct. They're using bad information, prejudicial forums to decide what's safe and what's not. And that's a scary, scary thing, especially in the United States, where we have freedom of speech. And we do allow Nazis to have their freedom of speech. We do allow other people who might express hatred to have their freedom to voice themselves.
Right.
Because in not doing that, we tear down our government. And that is scary all by itself.
Well, it's really scary when you're not being personal and you're talking about isms. Isms are discussed on college campuses and high schools throughout the country. Are teachers now going to be told in public education that they are not allowed to say Islamism, or tell the truth about Islamism? And we already see that the press is not disseminating honest information and news about what is going on with Christian persecution. We see an increase in I think, racist, bigoted language that is directed at white skin color and at anyone who's patriotic and a nationalist, regardless of skin color. So we're in a really bad set of circumstances here in the United States, I think, right now, where we have to decide whether or not we're going to defend our Constitution, our laws, and our republic, or we are going to become a Sharia-compliant, global communist-run, open borders country that has no national identity, and that's what they're hoping will happen by
That's
2030.
the humor in this. That's that red-green axis, because the Muslims don't want borders, because I'll say Muslims, Islamists, people who believe in political Islam, which is what ISIS became. The reason why ISIS gravitated so many Muslims to their community was because they had no borders. And this is the same thing the socialists are preaching: no borders, no borders. Why? This is where they begin to tie in. And in public schools, I cannot talk about Islamists. I can't. I can only address Islam as in general. I can't teach anything on Islamists at this point because there's nothing in the curriculum that will allow me to do that. There is nothing beyond
Well, what
the small
about
topic
if
of
you were
terrorism.
talking about if you were speaking of our First Amendment rights and you use this as an example? Can you do that? Are you allowed to do this? Because that's what they're doing in educators are forced to do in Connecticut right now. They have to give prompts to their students to go on Google, get brainwashed, and regurgitate what they're being told they can and cannot say. It's just really amazing.
Well, in general, in the first, when we cover the First Amendment, there's just in U.S. history when we do that, there's just so much on court cases that we spend time on that, and we really don't have time to do current events, unfortunately. But I am looking at I am not running the classroom that I'm in that's doing U.S. history right now. I'm the special ed push-in, so I don't get to help those things. In New York State, we have a class called PIG ECHO. We call it Participation in Government and Economics. And in the Participation in Government class, we could have a discussion on the First Amendment and cover this issue. Unfortunately, that's not one of the classes I'm working in this year, and I think it would be a great discussion. I'm amazed the intelligence of the kids that I'm working with in that when I pass through these classes. This is one I don't get to work in anymore, but it's just because of my schedule. But it's one of my favorite classes. Any time you get to a senior level and you're allowed to have discussions on social studies, history, and what's happening, current events, I just think that's important. But like we're having here, you can't have that on Facebook right now because we'd be discussing Facebook, a ban on Facebook. So, and we also have other people that are getting banned in other platforms. Like I said, Twitter, I got banned for. I'm shadow banned. To me, that's stealing my voice, and that's what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
Vlad Tepes' blog was banned. Pretty much, his whole channel was closed on YouTube. He had 30,000 followers, and this stuff is happening repeatedly because they're afraid of the influence. The words that you have that are truthful, they're afraid of them. And this is the scary, scary thing. We have to find a way to get congressional representatives to enact a legislation that would say, look, social media within the United States is subject to the First Amendment. I mean, it's a simple thing. I don't think that's very hard to enforce.
It is.
Yes, it will. It'd be simple as saying, look, you did, to Facebook, you stopped this person. What was the reason? They don't have a reason, and that violates your First Amendment rights. Well, sorry, you get to collect money. That's the way the law works in this country.
I mean, they have their community standards. I'm not opposed to community standards. I'm just opposed to community standards that violate our First Amendment rights. I mean, I don't want to see people post, live stream like the massacre at the mosques in New Zealand, live stream their massacres. I don't want to. I want people to be civil to each other, but freedom of speech is. I mean, it's First Amendment for a reason, and. What we have in what's even scarier, Paul, is that we have Islamists that have been elected to our government, and they are privy to national security information. And I truly believe this is the most important national security threat, akin to communists in Congress, but never before have we had a Islamist mafia that is representing, Sharia and their agenda of law and political totalitarianism, destroying our rights in this country. But it's here right now.
And that's the big issue. That's what we're fighting today, on so many platforms and social media is just one issue.
Yeah.
And it's just think I've given you my book on that, and it's just mind blowing when you start looking at all the actions of the Islamists, the Muslim Brotherhood entities here within the United States, what they're doing on such a broad platform. It will blow your mind. And if we go
you
back,
think about how many Muslims don't agree with their agenda, the Islamist agenda. Many. I mean, you're born a Muslim. You can't really, unless you want to get killed or be murdered, or you can get away, escape, or even if you want to, practice the being a Muslim, doesn't necessarily mean that you in Connecticut. I mean, look at Catholics in the United States. There's a bunch of churches that are empty. A lot of Muslims are just regular American citizens. They don't prescribe to this Islamism and this totalitarian, anti-American, political and legal affront to our Constitution and to our republic. They don't agree with it. But their voices aren't heard. They're not allowed. The media doesn't want to hear from them, and politicians are surrounded by the Islamist, mafia. So,
well, I've had several discussions with people from the Islamic faith, and I will say that the vast majority want Sharia. I have only met maybe 2 that don't. So,
I met the 2 that don't. I mean, I'm talking about Raheel Raza, who's a Canadian.
I've met her. Yeah,
I've
met her personally and had many conversations with her over
and
days.
Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, who he leads the American reform movement for Muslims, and they don't get much headway. I don't think they were listened to or.
When you don't go to the people you're preaching to, I think that's a problem, and that's the issue. I mean, when you want to change something, you have to start within that community, and I don't think they're doing that. I think they fear for their lives if they try. That's one of the reasons they don't. And Raheel Raza, I don't feel knows enough about Islam or denies a lot about it. So,
she denies a lot about it. She was on my show, and I asked her, how can you take a look at the Prophet Muhammad and, who you're supposed to emulate in your religion, and he was a warrior and committed atrocities, genocide, and did a lot of other things. I mean, how can you look at that and even build a religion around a prophet like that? But that... it's not for me to judge her thought process, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
But what you're getting at is what I'm discovering with reformists outside of Zuhdi Jasser, because Zuhdi Jasser knows better. Raheel Raza refuses to admit certain things happened, and I offered to read to her from Ibn Ishaq's book. I had it on me. Right in front of us, and I says, look, if you're going to tell me that this never happened, and I have the first biography of Muhammad with me, and you're saying it didn't happen, but the biographer says it happened, we have a problem, because you're denying the Siras, and then that would make you not Muslim. So,
it's religious revisionism, and
yes. So this is one of the areas I get into.
Without getting into without Raheel Raza, I mean, I really appreciate the work she's doing to stop female genital mutilation. Yeah. And she's a peace-loving woman who does believe in democracy and not in necessarily a totalitarian caliphate. And so you have to keep your mind open and talk to different people, and hopefully they'll all convert to Christianity, but that, they plan on another outcome. So.
Yeah, definitely. I want to say thank you again. Tell people one more time where they can get a hold of you on your show.
Lori on Liberty, Sundays, 1 to 3 Eastern, and it's on 94.9 News Now, WJJF, out of the you can get me live in Long Island, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, but online at 94.9. Just go to TuneIn Radio or some other. And this week we do have you're in good company. I'm very honored to have you on the show, but you're in good company. We have David Horowitz on and a few other people that will shed some light to what's going on with the censorship.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Lori. We'll have to have you back soon.
All right, take care.
I will see
Talk
you
to you
Sunday.
Sunday.